Hey everybody, this is Steven from PopCultureMaven.com. We're back with this week's new comic book reviews, and boy, it's a big week, kids. It's really big. But I actually wanted to start off with something kind of special that came out this week. The Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes. Now, this is a reprint. DC did Treasuries back in the day. The first one, well, one of the first big ones was Superman versus Spider-Man. There was Superman versus Wonder Woman. There was a Superman Muhammad Ali. The Superman Muhammad Ali was already in progress, but it was going to be late, and so Paul Levitz, who was writing Legion at the time, had said, "Hey, me and Mike Grell, we can do a special story of the wedding of Saturn Girl and Lightning Lad." So that's how it kind of came about. So this reprints it in the full size. Now, I think it's been reprinted before, but never in this size. And whenever they did reprint them in like the regular hardcover books, they never quite looked right because of the size and everything. So you actually get to see Mike Grell's art. He was inked by Vince Colletta, who's a bit of a heavy inker, so it wasn't really pure Grell, but it was still really nice artwork, and it was a good story. And there's the supplement that came with the original book that's reprinted here, but there's actually a few new things, including an afterwards by Paul Levitz and an updated of all the people that worked on it. So for like old school DC fans like myself, this was a real treat to get this week, and very excited. I'm glad that they're continuing to reprint those tabloid collector's editions, because they're very hard to find and they're very expensive. So it's really nice. So let's get the regular books this week that most everybody will see. First up, we have Punisher #1, written by Jason Aaron, with artwork by Jesus Saez. So it's been quite a while since the Punisher's been in a comic. I know there's been Marvel's been not too keen on having a Punisher comic because of there's outside baggage that comes with the character, unfortunately. But thankfully they brought him back, and I have to really give Aaron that he gives it an interesting twist. And so at this point, Punisher is now part of the Hand clan. And so his thing is he's still going after people who do bad things, but now he's part of that clan. So it starts off with him going after gun smugglers, weapons runners, and then you kind of learn how he got into the clan. And then there's a big twist at the end of this first issue to how he got involved, how they got him to join the Hand clan. So it's really quite interesting, and I think it's interesting in a different take on the Punisher. It's still the Punisher very much so, but I think it being part of this gives it a new good twist to the mythology of the Punisher. Saez's artwork is really nice. It's a really good looking book, solid artwork, and I think if you know who the Punisher is and haven't read one in a while, I think this is a good jumping on point for the story. I think at this point most people know who the Punisher is, so Aaron doesn't really rehash much on that end, which is probably a smart idea at this point. I was actually kind of surprised, so I think it's worth checking out if you're looking for some new Punisher stories. I wasn't blown away by it, but I did like it, and I think it shows promise, and it had, like I said, it has a nice good twist at the end. Next up we have We Live Age of the Paladins Black, and then we #1, and then we have We Live Age of the Paladins White #1. So first of all, they're written by Inaki Miranda and Roy Miranda, with artwork by Inaki Miranda. So what this is yes, you can read them separately, but in a way there's a story. The story, well, it kind of spins out of the first series. Now, if you haven't read the first series, I think you'll be a little bit lost. But I think they do give you just enough to kind of give you the theory of at least what's going on. So what it is there's the city who has a shield around it, and it protects them from the monsters who are trying to just, basically destroy humans. And if you go outside the bubble, the monsters can sense humans. So if the humans go out to fix so one of the things they have to do is the shield is diminishing, and they have to go out and try to fix it. So they have these suits that it keeps the monsters from actually seeing them, or sensing them, basically. So what you have is you have the same story. You're basically, it's kind of like you're telling the story, but in two slightly different parts. I mean, it would be like if this was a book, could possibly jump back and forth. It's the same story, but the black number one really has to kind of do with the fighters and the stuff like that, and the government sort of thing. And then the white issue has to do with the group that goes out and they're trying to fix the power for the dome. So it's kind of interesting how, and so even when I picked these up from the comic shop, it was like, Ryan was like, wait, there's two of them. And I'm like, okay, and I thought they were the same book with just like different covers. No, they're two separate books. So if you decide to pick them up, you should pick both up at this point. And, so the stories are quite interesting. I think, like I said, if you haven't read the first series, I think you'll be a little bit lost, but not totally lost. I think you can somewhat jump into this story because the brothers do, I think, a good job of getting you up to speed on what this particular story is. Now, there is obviously some threads from the previous miniseries that come into play, and there is a trade of that. So if you want to catch up before you read this, I did really like the first series, so it's definitely worth checking out. The art by Anaki is really gorgeous. These are really good looking books, and it's really interesting because even though it's the same artist, in a way, I think the feel of the artwork is a little bit different for the story, in the sense of it's very similar style, obviously, but I think the feel is very different between the black and the white. So, like I said, I did enjoy him, and I think it'll be interesting to see where they take this from here. How this is all gonna, suss out with like two different stories, but they connect together. So it's really an interesting experiment on this one. Next up, we have Naomi Season 2, Number 1, written by Brian Michael Bendis and David F. Walker, with artwork by Jamal Campbell. Now, it's been quite a while since the first series came out. That was part of the Wonder Comics line from Bendis. And I think there were two things, because Jamal Campbell started doing that Green Arrow max 12 issue series. And so obviously he was doing that, so he couldn't kind of jump back onto Naomi. And the other thing, so when Bendis took over the Justice League, he put Naomi in the Justice League. So with that being said, I think it's a little hard to kind of jump into this. You have to kind of know who Naomi is, and really from the first miniseries, I think that's really the thing. I don't think you necessarily have to read the Justice League stories that she's been in, because any elements from that are explained in this first issue. Now, with all that being said, I think the second season part, first issue gets off to a really good start, because obviously now Naomi, has these powers. She's got to try to learn them. There is obviously she's in the Justice League, but she's still, relatively a teenage girl. And then there's the struggle with her family, trying to deal with her now having these powers and stuff. So there's kind of a lot going on. And I have to really give it to Bendis and Walker. They're juggling a lot of stuff here from what has happened from the first miniseries. Because there's that story, there's the Justice League and all that stuff. So there's kind of a lot of juggling, but I think they balance it all really well. There's a lot of setup in this first issue. But I think I really like the character. I was really intrigued in the first miniseries. I haven't been reading Justice League because I really wasn't overwhelmed with it. But like I said, I don't think you really need to have read that. The really big win has always been Campbell's artwork. He's just a great artist, and he really brings. He's really become much more of a, I think, mature artist and more confident artist from the first series. So like I said, and plus, there's going to be people who've, because there's a television show on the CW right now. So I think this is a decent jumping on point, but I think it really does help if you've read that first miniseries. I think it'll really help you get up to speed on this one. But if you haven't, I would recommend getting that, but you could, for the most part, jump into this second one. I don't think you'll get as much as the backstory, but I think it's still enjoyable. Next up, we have SpiderGwen Gwenverse #1, written by Tom Seeley, with artwork by Jody Nishima. So once again, it's a #1. I'm giving it a chance. I haven't read SpiderGwen. I really don't know much about her. I really don't know a whole lot. So here's kind of what this is. So what you have is her. It's an alternate universe to ours where her she's still alive because Gwen Stacy died in the regular Spider-Man book. Her father's still alive in this universe, but they know that in other universes like that they're not alive in those universes. So then you have this villain that wants to, from another universe in the future, wants to basically go out with a bang and end all universes, I think. I don't know. It's very vague on what's going on with the story. Oh, by the way, so Seeley's story, once again, I think the problem is if you don't know much about the character and haven't been reading anything previously, you're kind of a little lost. I mean, he does explain some things, but part of the problem is, as with a lot of Marvel books, is these #1s are not particularly new reader friendly. So you're just kind of you're kind of going along and you're just like, okay, yeah, whatever. And the story's fine, but it isn't anything that's super compelling. And, that's kind of, for me, where it really doesn't go much of anywhere. It's all nice and everything, but it just, ultimately, it's just kind of meh. And Najimi's artwork is decent. I think there's a little bit of inconsistency in it. Very heavy anime influence and manga influence, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But I think there were a few times where the art was a little on the stiff side and a little inconsistent. But not bad. I just think it didn't help. Had the artwork been maybe a little more amazing visually, might have made up for the kind of flat story, but ultimately, I just think this one's a skip. Next up, we have Trial of the Amazons #1. Okay, so this is a big one. Written by Stephanie Williams, Vita Ilea, Joelle Jones, Michael W. Conrad, and Becky Cloonan, with artwork by Laura Braga, Skylar Partridge, Joelle Jones, and Elena Casagrande. So this is the first part. This is where the Trial of the Amazons start. And so basically if you haven't been reading Wonder Woman, Newbie, and all the other books, I think you'll be fairly okay. Because they do set it up that all the different tribes of Amazons come together because they're going to do the great combat thing, just like in kind of in the Wonder Woman films where they have the gladiator trials and stuff. So kind of think of it that way, but not so much. We haven't even got to the competition yet. So this is all a setup. There's a death of a fairly major character at the end of this first issue. I'm not going to spoil it here, but if you want to find out, it's all over the internet. But I think it's a decent setup. I mean, there's a lot of plates juggling because there's, with all the different characters. So, but I think all of the writers do a decent job of blending it all together and setting it up, because this is a pure setup for the story. So in that respect, you can come in fairly fresh and get most of it. I think it does help if you kind of know the characters that are in the book. But ultimately, I think there's enough there for a fresh reader to kind of come in. The artwork is actually quite nice. You can kind of tell the difference with the artists, but they all do a nice job. So once again, this is really a setup book. So that leads us into our next book, which is Newbie and the Amazons #6. That's written by Stephanie Williams. The script is by Stephanie Williams and Vita Ayala. With the script by Stephanie Williams and artwork by pencils by Athea Martinez, with inks by Mark Morales. So Nubia #6 is part 2 of the story. So after the death of the character in the Trial of the Amazons, so now we kind of have, not only do we have the competition that's going to be coming up, it's still not here yet, we have a murder mystery. So in a way, this is so what we're seeing here is a murder mystery story. And so really it's a continuation of the first story, that, okay, now so-and-so's been murdered. Now we have to figure it out, but we still got this competition, and we have fractions of Amazons that hate each other and all this. So the thing is, it really comes down to, if you're going to read Trial of the Amazons, you're going to have to read these. So there's, I think, 6 books altogether. It's not really crazy. It's going to cross over with Wonder Woman. Then there's going to be 2 Wonder Girl specials by Joelle Jones, which is going to finish, I would hopefully finish her off her stories, because the regular book's been canceled, sadly. And then there'll be the bookend of the Trial of the Amazons too. So that's how that is all going to go together. But reading the first 2, I think it's decent. We're still getting into the story, so we'll kind of see. I think next week we have Wonder Woman for part 3, so we'll kind of see how it's moving along, and whether this is kind of worth it. Like I said, if you're looking for a Wonder Woman story, I think it's fairly new reader friendly. I wouldn't say it's super new reader friendly, but I think it would help if you've read the regular books, but I think you can jump in fairly decently. Next up, we have Superman, Son of Kal-El, #9, written by Tom Taylor, with pencils by Bruno Redondo and inks by Redondo and Wade Von Grawbadger. So this is the second part of the crossover with Nightwing. So the last issue of Nightwing, I believe 89, if I can remember off the top of my head. It all blends together. Sorry, folks. But it leads directly into this story. So what's interesting is it's really not, it's not, like, at the end of this issue really is more of a continuing story that's going to run in Son of Kal-El book. But I think it's what I think has been interesting about this crossover is how they have known each other for so long and how they've worked together. And I think now, because how the age difference and stuff like that, how they still are really good friends. And I think obviously Tom Taylor's writing both books, so he knows exactly what's going on, which is kind of a rarity when you have a crossover. And so once again, the story is really seamless for both Nightwing and Son of Kal-El. So even if you've been reading Nightwing, you really should be, at the very least, read this issue. Because it does really, it's not so much that it's needed for either book, but I think it just really shows you kind of like, it gives you a flavor of Son of Kal-El if you've not been reading it, and vice versa if for some strange reason you have not been reading Nightwing, which is absolutely stunning. But I did like the story, and of course, I'm a huge fan of Redondo's artwork. It really looks good. I love his Superman. He just draws a really good John, and he just it's really just fun. And I liked also the fact that it was just it was kind of a heavy story, but it still had that nice sense of humor that especially we see a lot in Nightwing, where it's a lot of fun. So I think I'm a big fan. I like both books. I think it's really worth checking out. Next up, we have Han Solo and Chewbacca #1, written by Mark Guggenheim, with artwork by Dave Messina. So this is another, spin-off of the Star Wars universe. It's the first Solo, Han Solo, Chewbacca. There was a Chewbacca miniseries, but this is the first one with Han Solo. So here's really, for me, kind of like the best take. It reminded me a lot of the Solo film in the fact that it's a nice book. It's well written. The artwork's really nice, but I don't know how necessary it is. But that being said, I did enjoy it. It's a fun. I mean, he's a smuggler. He's kind of a pirate. It's set during the period where he worked for Jabba the Hutt. So there's that. Greedo shows up. So it's kind of all the classic, like pre-Star Wars elements of Han Solo, but not, he's not young like he is in the Solo film. Like I said, Guggenheim writes a nice script. I don't think there was anything that like blew me away. I think it's just a fun romp. It's a heist story type thing. And Messina's artwork's actually nice. It's just one of those books. It's enjoyable for what it is. It's not gonna blow your mind, but it's something that, if you're looking for a Han Solo book, it's a solid book. It's just not anything that's exceptional, but it's a good, solid story with good artwork. And sometimes that works just fine. Next up, we have Batman Urban Legends #13. So there's 4 stories in here. So the first one is Batman and Zatanna, written by Vita Ilea, with artwork by Nikola Shazimsky, I'm just going to leave it at that. I apologize. The Right Rich by Ram V and Anand RK. Eternity by Mohel Mishago, with artist Diane. And the final story is Ace the Bat Hound by Mark Russell, and with artwork by Carl Mosteret. So Batman Santana, we're in the 3rd part. It's a 6-part story. So we're at the halfway mark. I'm really kind of struggling. I really like the first part of the story. Second one got really weird. This one just seemed to like tread a little water, so now we have John Constantine coming into the story, because basically Batman and Zatanna have released an evil thing, a force, and they're trying to kind of put the genie back in the bottle. That's the basic premise of this story. I think the thing is that this 3rd part of the story just really treaded water a lot. I mean, it was nice and everything, but it's kind of, like I said, the first part was really, I liked the first part, and then it's just kind of slowly descended. So I'm kind of struggling with it. I do like the artwork by Nicola. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name. I totally screwed the pooch on that one the first time. The artwork's really nice. I do like the artwork. It has a really visually kinetic look to it. The story's just kind of dragging. The White Witch was really interesting, because the second part just kind of like was like, I didn't know what to think of it. I liked it and I enjoyed it, but it was like, what? You're kind of like, your head was spinning a little bit. But I will say, it wasn't that I didn't understand it. It was just like a lot. It was a lot to take in that second story. But the third story has a great ending. Ram V really just put a perfect bow on that story. And I really, really enjoyed it. And the artwork by RK is it's really it's a really great visual that works so well with the story. It was really, I was really intrigued. I really liked that story a lot. Then we had Eternity, which is the final part. So that's the other one that ends this issue. So next issue, there'll be 2 news stories that fit in, that will go in between the Batman, Zatanna, and Ace the Bat Hound. So Eternity ends this issue, and it really is, once again, it was like a murder mystery story, where, Eternity can talk to the dead. And it's one of those, Mishago's story, it's one of those that doesn't blow you away, but it's just really nice. It's really just a solid story. And I really enjoyed it. And the artwork by Deanne was really fabulous. And this issue just really was visually there was a lot to take. It just really, that just popped visually. And then we have my favorite. This is the whole reason I've been buying this book, is for Ace the Bat Hound by Russell and Mosteret. And it continues. So Bat Hound, the bear, the chicken, they've broken out. So they're on the hunt to try, Ace is trying to find Batman. So we have the 2 stories of Batman's been captured, and by the villain, and so Ace is on the trail to find him. So, but also the captor of Ace and the other animals is hunting down them. So there's a lot going on. But once again, Russell is just nailing this story, and the fact that you have a story where half the story is where animals and they don't talk, but you have to tell it visually, and that's where Mosteret comes in and just is able to visually capture what Russell is getting in the script. And this, like I've said from day one on this, this story alone is worth the price of admission. Everything else is just, well, you either like it or you don't, but it just go along with it. But this more than makes up for just buying the book. But I have to say, the only one that I'm really kind of struggling with at this point is the Batman Santana. The other ones did like I said, the White Witch and the Eternity ended great. They were really wonderful. So we'll kind of see if Batman Zatanna can kind of pick up next issue. So we'll see what happens with that. Next up, we have Hit Me #1, written by Christina Faust, with artwork by Priscilla Petritis. So what this is, it's a story about basically a call girl, but she's a call girl that basically does BDSM work, where so people she does more I don't want to say violent stuff, but more physical play, not necessarily sex, but more physical, as in maybe punching, things like that. So that's kind of her thing. So what it is she also has this guy who is training her, and obviously he's in love with her, and she is kind of in love with him, but she knows that, business and pleasure do not go together. But he trains her to fight in case she ever needs to get out of a situation. So that's the basic setup. So she goes to a hotel to meet with a client who all of a sudden called her, usually calls her once a month, and he called her more than once a month. And so she gets there, and there's a gun battle. And so that really sets up the story that there's something going on behind the scenes that now her and her trainer are now involved with. So that's the basic premise of this. It's really interesting. And I have to give Faust that for, this story could have really fallen off the rails, and could have, I think, in the wrong hands, could have came off not as well as it would have with the subject matter of her job. And also I think it's a big plus that she's a female writer, because she is able to handle the female character, I think, better than a male writer would have handled the character. So I have to really give props to her. I think the concept's actually quite interesting. I mean, I know the subject matter is going to be rough for some people, but it never, and once again, this goes back to Faust, that she never really goes too deep into the thing. It's all on like the surface. You never see anything like that is disturbing. I would say I didn't find anything. The artwork by Petritus is actually really nice. It's solid. There's a couple times where it's a little stiff, but it wasn't certainly fatal or anything like that. And once again, she visually captures the possibly uncomfortable parts for people, and visually does it well with taste and everything. So I think if you're looking for something a little different, I think it's worth checking out. Next up, we have Batgirls #4, written by Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad, with artwork by George Coronas. So this is the 4th part of the first story. So, excuse me. So we're at part 4 of the part 6. So we finally find out that the 2 Batgirls are able to capture the I guess you could say the Scarecrow clone, who has fear gas and stuff like that. So they catch him, but we find out that there's another person behind it. Won't give it away. But that's the basic premise of this particular, part of the story, where they're able to kind of work and communicate because of the Barbara's been able to set up a new firewall because the computer villain kind of came crashing in last issue. I still find this story very interesting. I enjoy it. I like I really Cloonan and Conrad are bringing a fun energy to like a Batman type, side story in this, because there's 800 Batman books right now. This one is kind of standing out because it definitely is not just like another Batman story. And I really have to hand them that they're really, I've really been enjoying it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of like silliness. There's good action. I think it's a good balance of everything, and that's what I've really liked the story. And then you have Corona's artwork, which I cannot just his artwork just blows my mind how kinetic visually, like in a way this book just like punches you, but not in a bad way. It just like it's so like it's like amazing eye candy that just is just stunning. And I know my shop's really struggling with selling this, but I'm really enjoying this book, and it's a real shame that I think more people are just not. I think there is kind of too many Bat books, and unfortunately that may be hurting this book. But I really think if you're looking for something fun and different in a Batman type book, Gotham book, this is definitely one to check out. I've really enjoyed it and can't wait to see where it all goes. Next up, we have Little Monsters #1, written by Jeff Lemire, with artwork by Dustin Nguyen. So, as always, I'm a huge Jeff Lemire fan, and I'm a huge Nguyen fan. And their Descender and Descender books have been amazing. I like this because this first issue is really a setup. So you have all these kids, they're just doing kid stuff. And then by the time you get to the end, you figure out that they're vampires. So, it's really interesting. And it's not that's really giving anything away, because I think what's interesting is you just have these kids and they're out playing and stuff, and you don't realize it's night, and then they're like, hey, we need to go inside because sun's gonna come up. And it just, by the time you kind of get to that, you're like, oh, they're just like normal kids, they happen to be vampires. And there's just something intriguing about like that concept. And once again, this is really the first issue is a setup. It doesn't really, we get to know that they're vampires, and that's really all we get to know in this first issue. But that's okay. I think the thing is, that Lemire does a good job of, at least because there's like there's like eight kids. So he does a good job of at least introducing them. Now, we don't get to know all their stories and all that kind of stuff, but we do get a feeling for each one of the characters. And so that actually works really well. Wynn's artwork is just, it's really, this is the first time in quite a while because he's been doing his watercoloring artwork. So this is more line work from him. But I think it actually works better in this particular book. He's able to really give, and I think, with the line work, with the black, it's kind of a very dark looking book. And his line work is just, I mean, he's a brilliant artist, and he just really brings so much to this book. And I think it's going to be, I'm really excited about it. Like I said, this first issue is kind of a setup, but I really, really enjoyed it and cannot wait to see where it goes. This is definitely a really big pick of the week. I really love this book. Next up, we have Superman versus Lobo number 3, written by Tim Seeley and Sarah Beatty, with artwork by Mariko and Dolfo. So, as I've said with every issue of this book, I can't believe they let Seeley and Beatty write this book. This book has been absolutely just nuts. It's crazy. It's batshit crazy. And if you thought that they hadn't gone far enough, this third issue goes off, like, it goes nuts. So basically there's the space. Okay, so they're going to protect the god worm, or whatever you want to call it, and then Lobo basically screws both the scientist and Superman. So he takes it and he creates an alternate timeline, because with this heart that he's taken. And so we go back to Earth, and Superman has become a dictator of the world. It's just Lois Lane. Basically, Jimmy Olsen gets killed by Lex Luthor. It makes Superman go crazy, and he's like, "Screw this! I'm taking over the world." And there's just, once again, there's so much crazy crap going on, even though it's an imaginary story in some respects. It's crazy. It's fun. It's wild. I love the fact that Seeley and Beatty have not only done a good job of handling Lobo, that is difficult because he is somewhat of a one-dimensional character, but they've added some really, really good meat to the bone here with this story. And also the way that they handled Superman, how, they kind of point out he's a Boy Scout, and like, dude, that doesn't always work sometimes. So that's really an interesting thing. And once again, there's a nice happy ending, but it's one of those things to where it was a wild story that I just really have loved. And if you've missed any of it, I'm sure they're going to reprint this as a trade and a hardcover, hopefully as a hardcover. But it's really been a lot of fun. And then Dolfo's artwork has just been really fabulous. I'm really a big fan of her artwork, and this was it's a little more mainstream because she can kind of do a bit more cartoony when she does her own work, which I enjoy. But she really brought a good balance, because it has a superhero, but there are times where it just gets like crazy, and she's able to like bring that kind of somewhat, not so much cartoony style, but that sense of it. And visually, it's just been great. I've loved this. It's been a wild ride, and it really had a great ending. And that props to the team on that one. And finally, this week, we have Batman and Scooby-Doo Mysteries number 12, the final issue, written by Shali Fish, with artwork by Dario Brizella. So, Fish brings it to a wonderful close. He has basically all the Bat family show up. He has every Batman villain show up, and yet it's fun. I think the really fun part is that the villains are kind of like at a villains party, and the Scooby Gang kind of crashes it somewhat. And then, Batman comes in and, saves the day and everything. This has been such a wonderful treat, because and I really have to give it to Brazella, whose artwork is he really nails it, because it's really visually set in like the Scooby-Doo type universe. So, Batman has that kind of look to it. It's just been fun. Each issue stands on its own. These are wonderful books. They're great all ages books, because the one thing I've always appreciated about Fish's stories is he doesn't write down, they're not necessarily written for kids. It's totally easy for kids to read and everything, but I think the fact that he doesn't write it for kids is what makes it so enjoyable for like adults and anybody of any age, and that is why these books have worked so well. And it's just fun. I'm really sad that it's over, but I'm hoping that there was at least enough sales for this, and when they print trades and stuff of it, that they'll maybe do another miniseries, because these are just so much fun. I mean, the Scooby-Doo team up was great because every issue was like different, but having Batman in the book really was fine too. I mean, because they didn't stick to a formula all the time. I mean, it's a basic mystery every issue. Yes, there's that formula, but I think the wise thing was it just didn't feel like the Batman was as repetitive as it could have been. And I really have to give it to Fish that he understood that. That's going to do it this week. Big week, kids. Lots and lots of books. As always, public service announcement. I buy all my comics at Pulp Fiction Comics in Long Beach, California. Ryan runs a great store there. Check out, they have Facebook pages. They have Instagram. Every Tuesday night, as long as things go well, he has an unboxing. He talks about new books. They offer trades and graphic novels. So like that Superboy and the Legion of Superhero book that I have, 30% off every day. And they offer discount on their pull service. They have a great pull service. They use Pull Box from Diamond. So you order in advance, you get it. If you order it, he'll get it for you as long as you get your order in on time. And Annie and Eduardo are great at the store. They're just customer service great. There is also Pulp Fiction in comics in Culver City. Same originally was the same owner, but different owners now. Chris and her team run that store once again. They offer pull service. They offer discounts on trades and paperbacks. Both great stores. If you live up more in the LA area, Culver City, definitely check it out. If you live down where I live in Long Beach or in the area, definitely check out Pulp Fiction Long Beach. And as always, we end our show with please be safe. Please continue to take care of yourselves, healthy. Get vaccinated, mask up if you feel comfortable with that. I know a lot of the mask mandates have come down. But just be safe out there. And as always, please be kind. With all the stuff going on in the world on many different levels, kindness is very important. Now more than ever, because it's rough out there for all of us. Being kind really can make somebody's day. Just be kind to each other out there. I know some days it's really tough on us all, but please be kind to each other. That's going to do it. Take care of yourselves. This is Steven from popculturemaven.com. Signing off. Make sure you support your local comic shops, and that's going to do it this week. And like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.